we would like to get through the basic information with you first, and then start entertaining a lot of those questions. So first off, I'm Sandy Russell. I am the current Vice President of Leadership for another 18 days as we transition into a new board. And with me today is Diane Highland. Go ahead.
Hi there. I'm Diane Velasco Highland. I am the current district president and also have 18 days left. I want to welcome you to President's Part 1. This is part of a two-part workshop. We're glad that you're here with us, and we're hoping to give you some key takeaways about information and the big picture about PTA. We want you to be an empowered leader, and whether it's at the unit or council level, and we want you to succeed as a manager of your team.
Excellent. So we are going to get started, and as you did hear just prior to us starting, this session is being recorded. Diane, just so you know, I cannot see the notes and don't have the other screen up, but I will be working on it. So
thank you, ma'am.
All right. I believe that is you.
Okay. Sorry. So here's a view of what we'll be covering. In this workshop, we will be speaking about your key roles as president and getting started. We'll also be discussing managing your PTA, and the how-tos will be covered in President Part 2. You will also notice that team building and working with conflict is covered in another workshop.
Okay. And this one is also you.
We will be going to share some slides from the PTA Basics and Finance for All class to highlight some of the topics covered. Information on each slide is covered more in depth in that workshop. If you did not have a chance to attend, it will be available as a recording. We encourage you to share the Basics and Finance for All and the Compliance class with your fellow officers and committee chairs. We are all fiduciary stewards of the organization.
We want to let you know that we are utilizing the workshop that was presented at California State PTA. So some of that information can also be found at capta.org. So the PTA mission is to positively impact the lives of all children and families. We are the oldest and largest advocacy group on behalf of children and their families, and have been for 124 years. Most of you hopefully know all of that wonderful information, but we have to always let our folks know who we are. We've been around a very long time, and we are positively impacting the lives of all children and families. And let's remember to share that mission statement with our unit, with our membership at the association meetings. Okay, so let's talk about basic PTA setup, so that we're going to assume that some of you might be first-time unit presidents, and that's why you're here today. And so I want you to help understand the structure of PTA and some of the nomenclature that we have. So first of all, those of you who are at an individual school are often referred to as a unit, and most of you are within a school district are supported by a council. So if you're going to school, say in Glendale at Mountain Avenue Elementary, you're supported by Glendale Council PTA. And for those of us in the first district, which is where you're here today with all of us, we actually range from Burbank all the way to Pomona, kind of handling all of the foothills, if you will, in that area. And then of course we have California State PTA and National PTA. And we are all here to support you. This is a wonderful thing about PTA, is that we have this incredible network of support that is there to answer questions and to help you through anything you might need. So that's for the units that are in councils. And out of councils, you are typically supported directly by first district officers. And we help handle also with your human resources, your training, your support, your representation. You have support like you wouldn't believe. And the only bad question is the one not answered. or asked, the one not asked. It's horrible if it's not answered, the one not asked. And basically, we have to remember for PTA that we're non-commercial, non-sectarian, and non-partisan, right? We represent all children and their families. And that one's you, Diane.
Thank you, ma'am. Give me a second. So sorry.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry, I went instead of these. We've got, apologies. So your unit bylaws are the most important document that you will need to do your job. Make yourself a note right now to get a copy from your current board. If you do not have a copy, check with your council, or you can check with Patricia here at our district office. All executive board members should have a copy of your bylaws to be placed in their procedure books. I can't emphasize how important this is, and we'll talk more about it. It's a good thing to go through your bylaws as a board together once a year. It's a great orientation and a way to start the year. Everyone will be on the same page and have same understanding of what is required and when and whose responsibility it is. So why are your bylaws so important? The bylaws provide the basic information to help you run a PTA and to help keep you focused on doing good things for children. Your bylaws tell you how to define a member, how to become a member, the dues amount, and the due dates. Your unit bylaws state who the officers are, how and when they are elected, and what each officer does. They provide for the election of the nominating committee and state the basic responsibilities of each of the officers. Additional information can be found in the standing rules and the California State PTA Toolkit, which is available online. In the standing rules, you will find the members of your executive board are listed, the role and responsibility of that executive board, as well as the meetings of the executive board. The standing committees of your PTA are also listed, what they do, and how the committees are formed, and how chairman and committee members are appointed. Really, really important that your bylaws need to be reviewed each year and updated every 5 years.
Hold on, sorry about that. I lost. How did that happen? Bear with me here, hold on. Okay. Okay. Thank you, so sorry. Are you still on?
We're on your PTA GPS, yes.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that is you.
Yes, ma'am. Give me one moment here. So we just finished that up. As noted earlier, the bylaws, I can't tell you enough how important that is, that you review them and update them every 5 years. If that does not occur, there's certain things that happen. One, your unit or council is not in good standing, therefore you're excluded from participation in really fun things like reflections, senior scholarships, membership awards, and a variety of other things. So if you need help, sometimes bylaws are intimidating, but it's important that you reach out and we'll gladly help you with that.
Okay. Ready for the next slide?
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that's still you for the next two.
Yes, ma'am, it is. If you want to learn more about these required forms, we have a compliance workshop in the 3rd hour. But please note that these are all required by law. It's not PTA saying you got to do this. It's sometimes, whether it's California State, Office of the Attorney General, or the IRS, or any other regulatory organization. We want to make sure that we understand that these documents are required for all nonprofit organizations, which is what PTA is. And as president, you're going to need to work closely with your treasurer and your board to ensure that these forms are submitted in a timely fashion. So first off is your conflict of interest form, then the form which is either, depending on your income levels, a 990, a 990EZ, or a 990N. And then that would be your federal taxes. Your state taxes is the form 199 or 199N, and that's with the California Franchise Tax Board. There's a form which is a RRF1-1, which we file with the California Attorney General. Then there's a form CTTR1, which is also filed with the Attorney General, and that's a new form that we started having to submit this past July 1, and that's for PTAs with income less than $50,000. All right.
I have a very sensitive computer. Sorry. I mean, I just touched my keyboard and it goes. Sorry.
It's fine. And then the final is your workman compensation form that is due in January of each year. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Wow.
And give me one moment here. Sorry. So the PTA positions, there's different levels. The required positions by the Secretary of State of California are, in its nonprofit law, have to have a president, a secretary, and a treasurer. All right. That's just, can't have a PTA without that. All right. Then what is required by PTA is a parliamentarian, an auditor, a historian, your site principal, and a teacher rep at the unit level. Then optional, we advise that you have these as well if possible, are your executive vice president, and that could be general, as a right-hand person for your president, or a vice president specifically, perhaps membership or education or community concerns, those types of things. And then optional to help out a financial secretary or a corresponding secretary. Okay? So while each of these positions has a specific task, it's the responsibility of the entire board to work collaboratively and to fulfill the duties of the office. We want to make sure that we're upholding the policies and procedures of National PTA and California State PTA. So it's important that we study and follow the bylaws and the standing rules. It's important that we participate in meetings, complete assignments, and meet due dates. It's also very important that confidentiality is maintained on board business. We also need to protect members' privacy by allowing no distribution of membership lists to outside interests or businesses, right? Want to make sure that we are protecting our members' privacy. We also want to supply an accurate and detailed account of funds entrusted to the membership. We want to grow our membership and mentor new leaders. As leaders, we want to make sure, like today, we attend conferences, workshops, and conventions so that we are better educated in our roles. And then we act as a steward to protect the assets of the PTA. And it's not just the treasurer's job to do this, but it's important that the entire executive board understand their responsibility to account for and safeguard the funds on behalf of their association.
Thanks, Diane. And I apologize, you guys. My computer is so sensitive that if I just even touch the keyboard to try and do something else, it does all of this. So I do apologize for that. And I did also want to make a note about historian as a required position. You will also sometimes find that role is put in with your secretary sometimes, or with another position, and that's okay. We just want to make sure that you have a historian who's keeping track of your volunteer hours. And as Diane had said previously, just remember, go check your bylaws. In your bylaws, we'll tell you exactly who your elected positions are, and in your standing roles, it'll tell you who your committee members are. So be sure and read those bylaws and share them with your board members to make sure you have all information. Okay. PTA president's duties. Let's get into some details, shall we? All right. So, the overall job of the PTA president is to act as a communicator for your PTA with the school, the community, staff, and the families. You are the link between many of these groups, and it is anticipated that you will facilitate conversations between a lot of them. By keeping the general membership in touch, you earn the respect and trust of your community, and PTA will build influence to champion the interest of children and families. If you recognize and maximize the PTA's role, you will bring many benefits to your unit and council and in your community. This checklist provides an overview of the duties of the PTA president. These duties are stated in the bylaws, and a full description you can find in the toolkit on capta.org. You will coordinate the work of the officers and committees. The president basically is a member of all of these committees, except the nominating committee. The president is never on the nominating committee. All printed materials are to be approved by the PTA president and school principal and before printing and distributing. The principal is responsible for the accuracy of school information, compliance with the Ed Code, with school district policy. And the president is responsible for accuracy of PTA information and compliance with PTA policy. You are partners in this communication. You cannot leave the principal out of your communications. You need to work together. You also preside at all meetings of the executive board and the association, of course, and appoint a parliamentarian, chairman and members of committees as stated in your bylaws, and then your executive board ratifies these appointments. So you can't just say, I absolutely demand that Diane Highland, be the committee member of napkins. Your board needs to make sure that they think Diane knows a lot about napkins, and that she will do a good job to make sure we get really good napkins. Right? Okay. So.
All right.
Now, I think I'm on.
You're on number 12. We're good. Thank you. So the president's duties that are financial. So you want to make sure that you're familiar with and understand basic financial procedures as explained in the California State PTA Toolkit. You want to make sure that you're signing all authorizations for payments along with the secretary. As president, you sign contracts, and we're going to get more specific on that in the next slide. As stated in the bylaws, you are the only one authorized. Sorry, here's some background noise. Sorry. So as I said, we're signing contracts. We are going to get specific on that in the next slide. Thank you. As stated in the bylaws, you are the one of the authorized check signers for your PTA. I'm going to mute for a second. My apologies for the background noise. I'm not sure where that's coming from. As stated in the bylaws, you are one of the authorized check signers for your PTA. They include the president, the treasurer, and one or two other elected officers, excluding the secretary and the auditor. Never, ever sign a blank check. As an authorized check signer, you can't be related by blood or marriage or reside in the same household as other authorized signers for your unit's financial accounts. In addition, the president works with the treasurer and the auditor to ensure their financial reports are completed, approved, and submitted to the council or district PTA by their due dates.
And of course, now when I want it to move, it won't. Hold on one second.
So there's president duties also include contracts. And what we want to do is we want to make sure to read all the contracts thoroughly. Remember that you're signing a document that leaves you your PTA liable. All contracts must be presented and discussed at an executive board meeting. The appropriate officer or chairman must have the authorization from the executive board while negotiating that contract. You want to receive a contract in writing. It's important that you understand the terms and conditions of the contract. If you do not understand them, it's important that have the contract reviewed by legal counsel or California State PTA insurance broker if needed. Ensure that the length of the contract is limited to the current membership year and does not encumber future boards, meaning if your term ends on June 30th, that contract cannot go to July 1, right? It's important. The membership then votes on the contract after it is presented at an association meeting. All contracts must be approved by the association before being signed. Then the contract must be signed by 2 elected officers, one of whom can be yourself, the president, but none of your appointed officers can sign the contract. It's really important to remember that. Okay. And now.
Okay. So, PTA president duties as a collaborator. We're going to go through some of this and talk about what does it mean to be a collaborator. So the president is the point person for the PTA, obviously, and as the PTA representative, the president collaborates with other PTA branches, like your councils and your districts, and the school and the community groups to strengthen all of these partnerships. You're the official contact. Presidents are listed as the official contact for a PTA, and that means they receive mail, email, and e-news from national, state, and district/council PTAs. The principal. Presidents meet regularly with the principal to build a good working relationship. This lets them stay on the same page to coordinate PTA activities with school activities. And by the way, we're going to be talking in some more detail of this in part 2 as well. Council district meetings, you're also representative there for your unit by attending council meetings and district PTA meetings. And if you can't be there, please, get one of your other board members to represent you so that not only are you represented, but also they bring information back to your unit or to your council because you want to make sure that information keeps going back and forth. Other assigned duties might include appointing the parliamentarian, as Diane was talking about earlier, chairman and committee members. Again, remember these are appointed and they're ratified by your board and the association. You ensuring that an annual report of your unit's volunteer hours is completed and sent through channels to either your council or your district. Those are due in May. And completing other officer duties listed in your bylaws or assigned by the association. For example, the president might be a spokesperson for a unit at a school board meeting, right? And again, some of these like historian hours and such, we're going to talk in other details in just a little bit. So, the relationship between a principal and a PTA president is really just so vital to the success of your PTA. It's important for the PTA president to be supportive of the principal as well. And you as the PTA president are the representative of the parent group on campus. And it's important that you be the role model. The PTA president should also get to know school district policies that include parents and their rights. Sit down with the principal and ask him or her the important policy questions that you have. And make sure that you let your board and parents know about those policies as well. As the president, you need to make sure that the school district policies are upheld at all times. And I'm going to give you a quick little example as well that you need to set the example for these policies. Let's say your school needs for you to, every parent, every person comes on campus to check in at the front desk and get the badge or whatever the security is. But you go, well, I'm on the PTA board, and you just walk right in, you don't sign in, and you go do your thing because you're the PTA president. No, no, no. You are setting the example, and you are not above the rules either. So you sign in like everybody else and you set that example and you get that badge and you be the good representative that I know you are. So also work on establishing good communications with the principal. Show respect and you should receive it. And if not, you do it anyway. You keep trying and you keep setting that example. Make sure to schedule regular meetings to discuss PTA plans and ideas. Never sidestep the principal. Never. You should build trust. That comes with honest and frank discussions that also represent parental concerns. It's part of the president's duties to see the principal approves all written PTA communications and flyers, newsletters, and notices. They are distributed to parents. Make sure to give adequate time for those approvals, and this includes print and electronic media. The principal of the school or designated representative, although not an elected officer, serves in an advisory capacity with full voting privileges on your executive board. Okay, and so the principal of the school or faculty representative appointed by the principal, if not elected member of the nominating committee, shall serve in an advisory capacity, but the principal does not vote during the nominating committee deliberation. So let's be really clear. Your principal or a teacher representative can be a member of the nominating committee if they're voted on. And if they didn't serve on it in the last time, but they must be there as an advisor, right? And then they wouldn't get a role. So you can't just say, the principal has no say. They must be part of that whole communication and that whole team effort when building that team. So show your support. The entire school community is watching. And students, parents, and staff members are all watching. And your enthusiasm and attitude is the representative of the PTA. So let it shine, right? You're the representative. People are going to say, when they think of PTA, they don't always know that we're the largest and oldest advocacy group on behalf of children and their families. They're going to say, Susie Smith is the PTA. And is that a positive thing? I know that it is. Okay, so let me see here. Sorry, got that, get that going there. So president and principal, and you have these joint responsibilities. The two leaders share these responsibilities. We've already covered regular two-way communication and its importance. The principal should always be assigned a time on the PTA meeting agenda to give the membership an update on school district news and plans, and sharing of information is absolutely necessary for good communication. And I will tell you that having that principal on the agenda is many times why you get people who come to your meetings, because they want to hear from that principal and they want to ask questions. PTA meetings and events should be scheduled in advance, even before the year starts, with consideration of the school calendar. Testing dates and special holidays should always be considered when making plans for the year. The PTA and the principal may request that each provide certain information and services. PTA believes that PTA funds should not be used to support activities or programs that are the responsibility of the school district. And we can get into that during question and answer, but keep that in mind. Mutual respect for the position that each holds is another critical factor for having a positive attitude in the working relationship. Respect includes recognition of the duties and responsibilities of the PTA and the recognition that the principal, as the school district local authority, has the responsibility of the management of the school site. Promoting family engagement is one of the purposes of PTA. It is also a requirement for school districts to do so as well. Therefore, this should be a joint effort. It is the job of the principal to see that the curriculum is followed by his or her staff. Discussion should be held with the principal to see how the PTA can support the curriculum by sponsoring events or school programs. So, PTA planning. There's 5 steps that we've got listed here to help get you started. So following these steps provides an opportunity to get more people actively engaged in PTA at the start of the school year. Getting people involved early gives them ownership and generates a buzz about PTA on campus. As part of your outreach, use a survey maybe, listing kinds of volunteer opportunities throughout the school year so that everyone can sign up to help. As soon as an election takes place at your PTA, your board-elect can begin to meet. You do not need to wait until July 1st to start your planning. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do any voting or implement anything until your term starts, but you sure as heck can get together and start that whole planning effort together. And whenever your PTA has officers, these are steps to take in planning for your PTA. So hopefully by now you've got your board in place and you guys are getting ready to go. We keep saying July 1st because the vast majority of you start your fiscal year July 1st. Some of you, it may vary. It might be a little different. It might be June 1st. Check your bylaws and you'll know.
What did that yellow circle say?
The yellow circle thing. That's a good question. Hold on. You know what? I can't go back. Diane, do you have it? Oops. Sorry, I can't see it at the moment, but I promise I'll get back to it and let you know.
I have it here. It says budget, the how.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I should know that, by the way, but I can't see it on my screen right now, and I don't have every slide memorized. Thank you, thank you. All right. So board orientation. Now, Diane and I are going to kind of bounce off of each other and kind of give a variety of things that we understand and can share with you. So, to get organized, the PTA, you have lots of different options that you can do. We suggest a board orientation where you all get together as soon as you know that you've all been elected and allocate time to each other. Talk about, what your goals are and, sharing the bylaws with each other. And Diane, I think it'd be great if you could talk about the ground rules.
Absolutely. So what you want to do at your first meeting is set ground rules or norms that are going to help you work together more effectively. The first thing you can do is pull out your professional governance standards, and we have that document available to you in the documents for this workshop. But it's a great place to start, okay? And they're available online at capta.org. We also have them available at pta1.org as well as in our documents. But it's just talking about how you're going to interact in meetings, how everyone can be heard, everyone votes matters, but you're going to do it respectfully. And you actually sign the document and submit it to the president. So it's just a binding reminder to each of you of how you're going to set forth as a team through the term.
Yeah, and I think that respect is so important that you show one another. And by the way, it's okay to disagree. You don't have to agree on everything, right? I mean, you're not supposed to, by the way. You want to have that really wonderful interaction, but civil, kind debate is good, right? So you don't want to everybody just roll over and somebody be quiet because somebody else is louder. You want to share their difference of opinions, and then you vote, you come to a conclusion, and you move on, right? So I'm going to jump into insurance because it's a huge thing for me. Equally important to those bylaws that we so love and know that they are such a great guideline to have is your insurance guide. And all of your board members should have a copy of this insurance guide. And it is also the book that you should go to verify it's there to protect you and your PTA. So this insurance guide explains the PTA insurance program. You need to go through it. The green, yellow, and red lights pages are probably your best friend. So you're going to do, we want to go pet llamas. We're going to do a llama petting, right? You go to that insurance guide and you check the green sheet. Is there anywhere on there that says I can pet live animals? And if there's a thing on there that says I can pet live animals and it's in the green box, you're good to go. Pet that llama. But if it's in the yellow box, in the yellow pages, it's going to say, yeah, you can pet the llamas, but you got to have, this, and this in place. Maybe hand washing station, maybe, 10 feet away. You can only wave at the llama, and you have to sign a waiver. So you got to do the stuff that's on there. If it's in the red one, it says there is no llama petting whatsoever. You can't do it. Even if you vote on it and you say, well, we've been petting llamas for 20 years, we're not stopping now, and I'm going to pet my llama. My point to you here now, and you've got to hear this loud and clear, is you are not covered under the insurance if it's on the red sheet. And if you proceed and something happens, you and your entire board are personally liable for that incident because the insurance company says, we told you we don't pet llamas, right? Do you understand the importance there? Really, really important. Now, the other thing is you can say, well, but it's a trained llama, right? You call the insurance people. They're there actually 24/7. And you call up and you say, hey, I'm Sandy Russell. I am from ABC Elementary in California. Make sure you tell them you're from California. And I got a trained llama. Can we do it and pet and talk to them and make sure you get clear guidelines about what you can and can't do. So I'm not saying if something is even on the yellow or whatever, you can't do it. But if you don't check with the insurance company and verify what you can and cannot do, strictly go by the insurance guide. I'm sorry, I kind of went off my script here, but I think it's really important that you get that.
And it's also important that you get it in writing. If it's something that you're calling about and you have a question and it's not in the insurance guide and you've talked to someone at the insurance company, get it in writing. That way everybody's clear and understands.
Right. And these things are not to stop your fun. They're to protect you. We want to protect our bylaws, our insurance guide, the guidelines we help you understand about the Attorney General's office and the IRS. People always sometimes say PTA has too many rules. Actually, what PTA has is a whole lot of support and understanding of what it means to be a legal nonprofit entity. And we're here to help you and support you and make sure that you get to do these things so that you can feel good about it. And the last one on here, you want to talk about procedure books?
Yes, basically you want to make sure and pass on what happened during your term, what went well in activities, what didn't go well. As a historian, as a membership vice president, as the president, you're passing on vital information so that folks don't have to reinvent the wheel. You want to help your future board succeed. Why? Because that means they're going to positively impact the lives of all children and families, as opposed to trying to figure out something that could have easily been passed along in a procedure book.
Awesome sauce. So the what? Now, what are we going to do now? We're on the board. I'm the president. Now what? You need to set some goals. Set goals for your PTA so everyone has input and information on your priorities for the upcoming year. And also it gives you a roadmap to follow to make a difference in your community. I would also recommend that you do attainable goals. When we first take over as something, we tend to get very excited and we want to change the entire world. It's going to be awesome. And it is going to be awesome. But I highly recommend that you set goals that really are attainable. And if you reach those, then you can set another goal, right? But don't try to do too much in the first 3 months of your presidency.
And the executive board has that responsibility, right? We're for setting those proposed goals, right? So we want to make sure that depending on your organization or your association, you may have a separate program committee whose main job is to come up with ideas or make recommendations for your PTA programs that align with those goals, whether it's the goals of the school or the needs of your community, right?
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely. And planning what PTA activities you organize also determines what your calendar is going to look like. So check your bylaws and see when your meetings are supposed to be held. Look at your school calendar with your principal. Make sure that you're not in conflict with something. The last thing you want to do is be in conflict with something that the school's doing and you're competing for attendance.
Or major holidays, right, that you didn't know about, that weren't on your radar. I remember I planned a big Founders Day event, and for some reason, this was years ago, I did not know it was the start of Lunar New Year. And half of who I thought would have come did not, because it was such a big deal. Obviously, I learned from that, but didn't check the calendar, all the calendars, right? So,
right, absolutely. Okay. So the do, family engagement and fundraising. So PTA's, main purpose to promote family engagement in schools to support student success. That's why a PTA only raises the funds needed for activities and projects as outlined in adopted budget. So let's be clear here, right? We are not a fundraising organization. We're an advocacy group. And every time you provide one of these incredible family engagement events, or that book drive, or that assembly on anti-bullying, you're advocating for your kids. You're advocating for a better, more inclusive environment, et cetera, right? But you have to fundraise in order to provide some of these issues. But fundraising isn't your goal. Your goal is family engagement and advocacy.
At PTA, we have a 3-to-1 rule. So for every fundraising activity, there should be at least 3 non-fundraising projects, programs, or events that are aimed at supporting family engagement and student success, right? So we get, and it's funny because many, you ask many people and they'll say, oh yeah, PTA, they fundraise. They used to sell cupcakes in the old days. Now, it's bigger and better fundraising. But that is only to get to the programs.
Right.
It's the vehicle to get there.
Right. And student involvement, we love student involvement. We love student members being on your board and the student voice being heard. But we also have to be really careful, because students should never be used or exploited to raise those funds.
And at your first association meeting, you should be approving programs, your budget, your membership plan, and the fundraising plan for the year, so that at the beginning of the school year, before anything gets rolling into motion, you want your association to approve the plans. Okay? Remember that all the pre-work is organized by the executive board, but nothing can be implemented until that association approves the plans.
Okay, so now the who, our membership goals. So you definitely want to create you probably have a person who's in charge of membership, and I think it's helpful to have a committee who develops the membership goals and a campaign for outreach and a plan on how you can boost your membership. Be sure to brag about your PTA to the whole school community. Probably one of the biggest problems that we do is we don't let people know what we do. So you even want to list all the great things. We provide, the book fair, we provide the assemblies, we provide the back to school picnic, we provide, what are the things that your PTA does? You want to list that and tell people, please join PTA and help us continue this great work. So keep bragging about it.
It's also important to remember that PTA membership recruitment isn't just that big push at the first week of school. It's all year long. It's inclusive. Every parent and family member should be asked. Community members, fire department, your city council, your school board members, everyone you want to be, and explain why, right? We want to make sure that why are we doing this? It's to positively impact the lives of all children and families. If people understand the why, as opposed to, oh, you're going to be volunteering 40 hours a week, plus this, plus this, plus. No. Volunteerism isn't, we love you to volunteer, but it's not a requirement of membership. So ask, right. ask, and ask again.
Sure. And be visible. I know that this last year has been so incredibly difficult to say the least, right? As far as getting membership doing, but hopefully we're all getting back into it. And depending on your school and what you're doing, hopefully you can have, if there are events, have a PTA table, membership table, have some envelopes out there, have a list of the items that you do, and engage with people one-on-one. I'll tell you, when I went to, at our elementary school, and at the time, we were able to do, open the doors for the kids at the elementary school when they're coming in. I wore a sandwich sign. And I walked up and down the car line. It said, join PTA. I know, I'm really bad. I also painted it on my shoes. So, come up with different ideas to engage with people and let them know you're out there and who you are.
It's also a good idea to have a welcome packet for your parents on the first day, the first week, so that they can join your community after the start of the school year. Every time you have a basketball game, if you have a football game, any sporting event, any back to school night, right? You want to have that PTA table there, or a group of PTA leaders welcoming folks and saying, hey, we've got this great organization. We want to be part of it.
Right. I mean, use what's best for you, right? You got to know who your community is and how that works in your environment. Also in regards to payment, we've been promoting a wonderful online program called Totem. It's really easy to use. We'll talk about that later, but we encourage you to do Totem because it's just, people can just go online, click the button, and they become members. But if your community still, wants to use envelopes and you want cash or you want checks, welcome it all. I mean, there's no set way that you have to do just one particular way. If you have any questions at all about membership, your membership chairs hopefully are at our membership meeting. But you just give us a call and we can talk to you about envelopes and, Totem or anything else that you need.
And if you need any information on membership campaigns, we have a workshop today on membership, as well as information both at the First District PTA website, the California State PTA website, and the National PTA website. And we'll be providing those links as well. There's different workshops and information available. The biggest thing, especially for those of you that are council presidents, your units can't utilize the program or the electronic membership unless the council has said yes. Once the council has said yes, you don't necessarily have to utilize it yourself. You just are allowing your constituent units to be able to do that.
Yeah, decide for themselves.
So easy. It really, really is.
It is easy. It really is. And it's a cool program to use. And by the way, I'll just say before we segue into this slide that's popped up here, a lot of times I'm invited to a meeting or I'm somewhere and somebody says, oh, we're shy of members. I go check immediately to see if they're on Totem and I will join. So you miss opportunities if you're not on Totem for people like myself or Diane or whoever is joining you to say, I'll do it. I'll do it right now. And then I'm so disappointed if I can't join. So, okay.
And we can also send you that link to, we have a very competitive group at the state level that want to join many, many PTAs. So you have an additional group that would love to join your PTA. So please, ask, just ask. So
we're almost on the home stretch here. So let's do the how. Let's talk about your budget. So the budget is your friend, and it is your financial plan for PTA activities and a guideline to control your spending. Decide first on your programs and activities and then how you will fund them. And I'm going to add real quick in here, Diane's going to take the next line. You can't spend what you don't have. So you can have a budget of $5,000, but if you only have $3,000 in the cookie jar, you can only spend the $3,000. Right? So be really careful. I love that you might even say, wow, we want to have a budget of $15,000. What a great thing. That's awesome. But if you don't raise enough money, you got to look at where you have to cut. So keep going, Diane.
Sure. Once the president-elect can create a budget with their committee that's chaired by the treasurer-elect to develop a preliminary budget. If your election is after July 1st, then it's the treasurer who chairs that budget committee. But you want to take a look, and as Sandy said, you may have great plans for fundraising, and that's fantastic. But whatever your starting dollar amount is what you're going to be working with. So be realistic with those plans.
Yeah, because it's a guideline, and your prior board doesn't set your budget. But, however, obviously it's a great guideline, you know, and I know like often for us, you know, we'll have the president and treasurer meet with the new incoming president and treasurer, and they talk about it, and they talk about what worked, what didn't work, you know, how did it work out? You do a budget to actual, right? And you work together. But that previous board, just because the previous board had a budget of $20,000 doesn't mean you have a budget of $20,000, right? Your goals might be different. So,
and also, as your PTA is in the planning stages, all of the information on programs, events, and fundraisers is going to be submitted by the board and then used by the budget committee. So it's important to get input from the entire board on that budget. So as an example, I'm going to be the incoming education vice president. So I have ideas of what I want to do, incentives or whatever the case may be. I put my plan together, present it to my board, and then we vote on it, saying, yeah, I think we should allocate this much money for that program, or no, that seems a little much. Maybe we should allocate the dollars to something else. So,
right. And, you know, your treasurer takes the lead on this, of course, you know, and gathers all the information of what they know from the past, what they know moving forward, and then presents all that to the committee and the executive board, and then ultimately the association. So income equals expenses. So estimate probable income from all your sources and balance income with the expenses, what I was talking about just a little bit ago. So make sure you present a balanced budget between the income and the expenses.
And then as that preliminary budget is developed, this is then presented to the membership by the treasurer-elect at that last PTA meeting of the school year. And this lets the board-elect cover routine summer expenses as outlined in the bylaws or in your bylaws. As well, you want to remember to get authorization for summer spending by the new board at the last association meeting of the year. Really important.
Yeah, and so, but remember, the budget is a plan, and it can be changed or modified with a 2/3 membership approval at any point during the year at an association meeting. So let's for example, let's say you wanted, you allotted $1,000 to do your book fair. Okay. And as your book fair chair is working everything out, he or she comes back to you and says, well, here's my budget of $1,000. However, I'm going to ask for $100 more because we're wanting to do X, Y, Z. And they give the full explanation, and they're saying before they spend it, by the way, I would like to have an increase of $100. And so you look at their explanations, you decide if it is an accurate and an expense that you want to incur, and you then bring that forward to the association that you want to change the budget from $1,000, increase it $100 to $1,100. It's really important that all of your people understand that before they spend any extra money. So if they were already released their money for $1,000, that's all they are released to spend. If they spend $1,100, they've overextended and may not get repaid that $100 because they didn't ask for the approval ahead of time. We can get into that later. So, wow, we're here. All right, questions and answers. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can, yay. All right, I'm going to go to gallery. So now what we'd like to do is answer some of your burning questions. Now, again, and we're going to eventually go over into part 2 where we get into some details about how to actually run a meeting and, you know, some of those fine details with you. But any of the stuff we just talked about, how can we help answer your questions? We can do this two ways. You can put your question in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can call on you. We would prefer if if you've got an issue at your school that's a really long, detailed story and you need help with something, we are happy to do that, but this is probably not the forum for it. But if you have a generic question about something that we've been talking about, we would love to entertain that and share with the group. So you can start writing in the chat, or you can raise your hand. I see, let's see, Tiffany.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I have a question. You mentioned about principal has a full voting privilege. Does she or he count as a quorum? Like if she's there, she count as a quorum on the executive board, right?
Absolutely, they count as quorum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, thank you. That's my question.
You're welcome. All right. How about Jennifer? Jennifer, there you are.
Swan?
Yep. Sorry. Hi, Jennifer.
Morning. I hope this is generic, but if we do small little like artsy programs where we just want to get reimbursed for costs, does that kind of thing have to be submitted through the PTA budget, or can parents like pay it back to the person that bought the items, like Venmo it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I'm going to have Diane chime in as well. If this is an actual PTA event or program, then you need to make sure with the executive board ahead of time what the budget is and how much money you have to spend. Okay, and you would only get reimbursement from the PTA based on that guideline. If it's not a PTA event, then we don't have any say-so in it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. But you would never take payment from parents directly as a PTA member doing a PTA event. You would never take money directly from anybody. That if they're making a donation, it goes to the PTA, and PTA has their procedures for how they reimburse you for those supplies. Diane, is that clear?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely clear. You want to make sure that, again, whatever the PTA program might be, and it could be a simple program, doesn't matter what it is, an art program, anything like that, but it is an approved expenditure so that you can get an approved reimbursement with, supplying your receipts and so on.
All right.
Margarita.
Hello, thank you so much. Really appreciate just all the information you shared today. I have a question. School starts typically in August, and our first association meeting is in September typically. So how do we go about making some expenditures for, let's say, a back to school event that happens right at the beginning when we still haven't had our budget or calendar or programs approved until the first association meeting in September? Any ideas or thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in your bylaws, there actually is a line item, and it's different for everybody, by the way, so that's why you each need to check your bylaws. There is an amount that is typically stated on what your carryover is. And that carryover money, so usually it'll say, for some schools, it's $1,000 carryover for expenditures, just like you're speaking to, for those things that are in the summertime that get you started, so that you have that authorization to spend up to a certain amount. Diane, you want to fill in?
Yeah, it's actually based on how many association meetings you have a year. So if you have an association meeting once a month, as an example, the expenditures that your board would be allowed to spend is usually about $200. If your association meetings, you only have 2 or 3, it might go up to $1,000. So it's really important to pull out your bylaws. And if you have questions about it and not quite sure, please reach out to one of us and we'll be glad to do one-on-one with you to show you where that is exactly, or our parliamentarian at the district level will also be glad to help you walk you through that.
Right. Okay. All
Thank
right.
you, Margarita.
Melissa.
Good morning. My question is, you guys had mentioned something about it can't be a covered expense if it's a district expense or something, or district is supposed to pay it?
Oh, you're talking about the school district.
Yes, pardon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we're saying philosophically is if, and I'll give you an example. If and this is kind of an extreme example, but some of you do this, by the way. You're paying the salary of a part-time librarian. PTA philosophically believes that that should be an expense paid by the district, right? And if you start getting into paying those kinds of salaries, now you're into a whole nother avenue of fundraising, as well as responsibility. What happens if you don't make enough money? You can no longer provide, the services you wanted to for the kids because you're responsible for the salary, right? So that's a pretty extreme one that we're talking about. You can do it, right? And of course you have to pay it to the district directly, never to the person. But we highly recommend that you don't do it, because you need to hold your district accountable to the things they should be paying for. So do you have an example of something?
No, I don't. I just wanted to understand what you guys were talking about when you guys brought that up.
Okay, does that make sense to you?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, another example would be, for example, PTA wants to provide transportation for a field trip. And we never pay for buses, as an example, directly to the bus company. The donation, once it's been approved, by the association, the donation would be made to the school district with what we call restricted funds. We are going to donate X amount of dollars to be used for the field trip on Wednesday, July 10th, in the amount of, $1,000, whatever that is. And there's an actual form that you use that's available in our California PTA toolkit with that donation. So if for some reason something happens and that field trip doesn't happen, that school district can't utilize the funds for something else, they have to return the money to the PTA.
Yeah, and I'm going to quickly give another example too of the other extreme. So, you're sick and tired of the gutters not being fixed at the school. So the PTA is going to spend, $5,000 to have the gutters fixed. That's ridiculous. Right. Your school district needs and you deserve it, and it's their responsibility to pay for the facility issues at your school. And you should not be picking up that bill. Again, once you start picking up those bills, the school district goes, oh, we don't have to deal with ABC. They're going to just pay for it out of their pockets. Don't do it. Fight for it. Go to the school board meetings and say, we got to have those gutters fixed. Show pictures. Get angry. Let them know what you think. But don't pay for it, because that's the kind of thing that your district should be paying for. All right. I think, Amelia, you're not putting your hand up on the side, so I'm going to call on you because I know you've been trying.
Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I can't access the chat for some reason. So.
That's okay.
My question is general electronic storage. So instead of producing papers of the bylaws and insurance guide and all that, and even procedure books, can we put it on, say, a Google Drive, and so people can, my board can view it at will. So, they don't even have to look for the email that it was sent in and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So. Absolutely. We at the district level use Google Docs for many of them. Just want to make sure that you're providing access at the appropriate levels, right? So there's certain documents that would be confidential for your executive board. That would be one level of access. All members of the association have the right to have a copy of the bylaws, right? In the old days, before pre-COVID, we would have them available, at a meeting, whatever the case may be. What we don't want is just bylaws hanging out there, maybe posted on Facebook or something like that, right? We don't want that. We do want some security with your minutes as well, right? That are confidential documents from executive board meetings, things along those lines, right?
Yep. Remember, this is a privilege for your membership as well, and there's some protection that you have to take place. So absolutely password protected, appropriate for who it's intended for. Never should be on a website, shouldn't, or unless it's password protected, should not be on a Facebook page, you know, stuff like that, right? Okay, how about we have Erin?
Hi there. I'm sorry about that. My question was answered earlier about the principal being able to vote. Is there ever, and that was answered, thank you. Is there ever a time where she is or he is not able to vote for something?
Other than if, like we were saying, they can serve on the nominating committee just like everybody else, but if they had served in the previous year, they can't serve in the new year. How and on the board on the
on the nominating,
right.
but
on the
that's
nominating
for
committee,
all committee members, not just
all committee members.
Right, they can't do it twice.
However,
okay.
Let's say they served, they were voted in to serve on the previous year. So now you go into the new year, they can't serve on the nominating committee as a voting, you know, active, but they are still there as an advisor.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, that I remember there was one instance a few years ago where that was the case, and I was like, oh my gosh, what were the terms under that? That answers it. Thank you so much.
Right. Okay.
And also, just a reminder, while we're on nominating committees, that is the only committee that the current president cannot serve on. It's ex officio. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. How about Anna?
Hi. Yeah, I just want to ask. In addition to the question earlier about the district we paying for the district, but this is in terms of schools. So like an example, we have like a school sponsored, not school sponsored, but schools doing like an award. So teachers will be picking some students for awards for, you know, doing excellent stuff. So my question is that something that the school has to pay, or the PTA can actually pay for like the awards, the gifts, or if there's some kind of like food or something during that event?
Yeah, go ahead, Diane.
It depends on, again, you know, if it's a planned event, right? One of your programs that maybe your hospitality group is going to be hosting, and it's been approved first and planned by your executive committee or the committee that's handling it, and it's been approved by your membership ahead of time, absolutely. If it's an after the fact, oh, we decided to have pizza for everyone and we want PTA to pay for it, no, that's not how it works at all. It has to, again, all of this is pre-planned. Even if it's an emergency type of thing, it's still, you have to bring these expenditures to your association to approve. We're not an open checkbook.
Exactly.
So the event can't be something that the school, like let's say student of the month. It's something that the school does, and then if we want to provide the gifts, it's okay as long as it got approved. You're saying, as long as it's in the budget.
Yeah, be very careful of the term gift. There's very strict guidelines in the toolkit and in also a nonprofit rules and regulations on what gift is. But and that take us into a whole nother realm that we're not going to do right now. But what Diane is saying is, if your school does something and PTA wants to participate, and it's all done ahead of time, you know, that there's an understanding that PTA's participation is going to be this, and it costs this much, and your association approve it, that's fine. But we'll have to get into the term gift in a little while later, because we don't gift people all the time, right?
Okay.
And Sandy, we have a lady by the name of Teresa Antunes that has had her hand up for quite some time. Teresa or Teresa, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you.
You have to unmute, Teresa.
Teresa, you're muted. There you go. Did you want to ask your question, Teresa? Quería preguntar.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yes, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Now, yes.
Okay. Sorry. I was trying to use my earphones. Okay, so I know that some of the question was answered. I know like I'm new to being the president this year. I've done president before, but one of the questions is that nothing can be approved like contracts or fundraising until we have our association meeting. We also start in August, so usually our association meetings are not until September. One of the things that I'm trying to find out is when I was invited to join with the new board and everything, I was sent an email about the fundraising company that they were using before. How would I don't know if it was approved for this incoming school year that's coming up or if it was a previously used. So how would I do that to change it? Do I still have to go and wait for the association meeting for that to be approved?
So I'm sorry, clarify for me again, what is the entity that you're wanting to use?
Okay, so when we had a fundraising company that we were using or that the school was using last school year, they sent me a link or information for this coming school year to use them again for fundraising. I was also sent this information by the president. So I don't know if I need to keep using this company until our next association meeting, because that's one of the things that we try to push forward is the fundraising, because it is for a junior high and we have other committees that want to fundraise. So do I need to wait for the association meeting to approve a new company, or do I just keep using this company and then once we have an association meeting, change it for another change the company for spring fundraising?
Yeah, okay. So great question. And Diane and I are both going to break this down for you. So first of all, the previous board cannot encumber decisions onto the new board. So just because they've used ABC vendor for the last 10 years or even just last year does not mean you have to use them in the new year. That's number one. Number two, you do have to have an association meeting in order to approve any contract signing or the use of, how you're going to move forward with your fundraising. My recommendation is a couple of things. One is that you need to adjust your calendar to have an association meeting as soon as you possibly can when school starts, so that you can kick off all of these things that you need to do right away. Now, if that's not in your calendar, you can work on your bylaws to change that. But the other thing is that you can put out with 30 days notice that there will be a new association meeting and make it for August so that you can then, work with your board ahead of time and come up with all the things that you need to have approved. It's really a critical path for all of you to look at your calendar, know where your association meetings are, and know what it is you need to have approved at those association meetings so you can continue to function between association meetings, right? Really important, because it's your association meeting that is the critical path for proper approvals, not your board meeting. It's your association meetings. So, typically because elementary schools do so much, they have so much activities, a lot of elementary schools have a monthly association meeting so that they can make sure that they get lots of, they get stuff approved every single month. Now, some of you go, oh my gosh, people wouldn't show up. You'd be surprised if there's something consistent that happens. Diane, you want to add to that?
Sure. You could call a special association meeting if you wanted to, and I believe that is 10 days notice. If you wanted to put forward a special item of business, right? So if you're, I know that most of the middle schools and elementary schools like to do this at a back to school night, right? Because you get more participation. But if it's something that is pressing that needs that association approval, you can call for a special meeting once school begins.
Yeah, and I was kind of alluding to the same thing when I said 30 days notice, because you've got that time right now. You know when school's coming back into session. Maybe it's at your howdy coffee, because sometimes back to school nights are a month in, right? So whatever works out best for your calendar to start getting all of your stuff lined up and going. But you do not have to use anybody or anything or any program that your previous board used. This is your new term. This is your new ideas. You can, I mean, a lot of times, right, it's tradition and we love it. It's wonderful. But sometimes it's time for some things to go, and that's okay. So, all right. I hope that answered your question. Susanna?
Yes, hi. So I have one of the questions, and my main question is like, what happens if one parent decides to be PTA president and vice president during 7 years? So for 2 years, vice president, 2 years president, like, and keep going and nonstop. Like, we haven't seen nothing on the bylaws that will impede, forbid that. And we just want to know we don't get like stuck on some kind of issue on that aspect.
Right. So what we'd like to do is have you reach out to Diana and myself separately from here, and we can have that discussion with you. But basically, it's why it's so important that you actually bring in a nominating committee, you know, early on, like usually December or January at the latest, and you have that legal nominating committee in place that's been, you know, voted on. And they then assess who are the best people to hold the next positions. Because the same person should not just be rotating the positions back and forth. And if you have a nominating committee, you can usually work that out. But if that's not happening at your school, if people are just assigning themselves positions, then that's a serious problem, and it's a serious violation of your bylaws.
No, we do have a nominee committee and everything goes by the book, but like, for example, this year, it was understandable, like there was no parents involved during association meetings and PTA meetings or anything like that because of COVID. So it was really hard to get any people whatsoever in any meeting whatsoever. So we kind of understood and we kind of let it go, but counting my years on PTA member, and it's going to be saying 7 years for the same person. I was like, okay, something is going on, you know?
Yeah. Thank you, Susanna. We'll put our email addresses in the chat, and I will also reach out to you. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We're 9 minutes out, so we're going to keep going here with Mariana, Christina, Nora, and Erin in that order. Does that sound good?
Yeah, and I'm going to ask Patricia if you would put mine in the chat. For some reason, my chat is only letting me talk to the waiting room.
Got it. I can do that right now to everyone.
All right, Mariana?
Hi, good morning. Just a quick question. I was wondering, I've seen it before. Does the agenda needs to be approved in every meeting? And do we need to ratify the actions of the treasurer in every meeting?
Go ahead, Diane.
Hi. Okay, so yes, and in the documents that we uploaded for you for this meeting, and we'll put in links in part 2 for you, but yes, absolutely, that is part of Robert's Rule of Order. And the first thing you do is you're welcome. Welcome to our PTA meeting, and so glad that you're here. Could I hear a motion to approve the agenda with necessary changes? That's pretty much the second thing you ask in your meeting every time. Doesn't matter if it's an executive board meeting, a committee meeting, a association meeting. Okay. And then you go on to the next step of the minute.
And by the way, on the necessary changes, what's nice about that comment that's in there, and it's usually simple things. It's like you have to go out of order. You know, you had on there, you know, membership report, president or principal's report, blah, blah, blah. Principal has to leave early, so they want to give the report first. And it's just so it gives you that flexibility of mobility within your agenda. But it's nothing more than that. And then the ratifying the actions of the treasurer, absolutely, right? At an association meeting, you absolutely want to do that and get those expenditures taken care of.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Christina?
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for all this great information. My question is about, again, returning to the subject of the first association meeting and what needs to be approved by the association. In years past, I'm at a PTSA at a high school, and we offer several programs like a forum each year, say 3 of them. And I guess in the past, I haven't seen that those are specifically approved by the association at that first meeting. Is that something that I should do? Like actually specify the dates of the 3 forums, let's say, and what we're considering as the subject, and then the association would approve that or not?
I would, hopefully, but yes.
Right, hopefully.
As many details as you can. And that's why the prep for that association meeting is so important. You want to have as accurate as a calendar as you can, as accurate of a budget as you can, and what expected expenditures. Now, you may not, you may have something in the spring that might move around, but the more accurate information you can provide early on, it'll help with attendance. It'll help with understanding of what's going to be spent. Right?
Yeah, and look, as a rule of thumb too, if you don't know if you should have a motion on something, go ahead and do it anyway.
Do it.
And then it's in the minutes, it's approved. And what that does is it does 2 key things for you to have motions that have been voted on, approved, voted on and approved. And that is, number 1, it helps your auditor. If it's an expenditure of any kind, it has to have a motion, and your auditor needs to say, oh, look, it was approved to spend the money. Oh, look, and then here is where they actually spent the money. Oh, wait a minute, they approved $300. They spent $320. And the auditor is going to make note of that, right? Which is good. That's why you want an audit, because it's a cross your T's, dot your I's, So it helps with that. And number 2, it helps with anything in the future with your insurance. If you did not put something in a motion and approve it by the association, your insurance company says, wow, you did that without any approvals. And so it's really hard for us to cover you because your association didn't approve your activity. So when in doubt, put it in as a motion. Doesn't hurt. It can only help.
So if I'm doing that, say it's 3 potential forum ideas, they're presented to the association. Would we maybe want to separate those out? Because sometimes, as you pointed out, sometimes that one in the spring is going to change for whatever reason. So do we maybe separate them, like vote a motion on the first forum, the second forum, and the third forum, or?
You can. You can. That certainly makes it clean. But at the same time, by doing it all collectively, you also put in the caveat that the subject matter is subject to change based on availability, whatever, and we will certainly let you know moving forward. Because you can always, at a future meeting, you can always, do another motion that changes something. It's fine.
Right, that's true. And then I think I understand that through December, we would be allowed to continue using some video. So on the subject of forums, the second part of the question is, would we be able to continue to either live stream or record so that we can then post those afterwards on our website or our YouTube channel or something, so that our
you're talking about meetings, or are you talking about
a specific forum, like a program? Usually we do a general meeting and we adjourn the meeting and go straight into some kind of forum or program. And that part we could record or continue to provide live. I mean, our general meeting is going to be allowed to be attended via Zoom, and then they would stay on for a program.
Yeah.
Or if not, could we just record the program and then make that recording available after the meeting?
As long as you get the approval ahead of time, you know, like maybe a sign up of some sort so that people know that they're going to be recorded, right? You have to have approval. Say, for example, if I didn't have approval ahead of time for this workshop, I couldn't record it. But we got it in writing from everyone. They checked off a box. So that would be the caveat.
For the presenter would need to approve. It would be more like a webinar format where the attendees would not be recorded, but like the presenter, yes, would need to agree to be recorded, right? And then
that's right. That's right. Yeah, you've got it down. It's just that you really can't record meetings per se, and you wouldn't want that going up anywhere.
Right. No.
But your presenters for sure, as long as they give their approval, and it's all, and you should also always state it ahead of time and then put it in the chat that this meeting is being recorded for future use, just in case if at the end somebody is asking questions and their voice is on or their picture, that they know that as well. But that's totally different.
Okay, thank you.
And we got time for one more quick question, and I think that's Laura.
Nora, yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on where to get the procedure books or samples of the insurance guide, the ground rules. I've been treasurer for a while, but I've lost track of where to obtain these things. I did have a question regarding, since we've done Zoom meetings for PTA meetings this past year, is there any objection to continue the Zoom meetings even if we come back to campus to have in-person meetings? Is there a rule about that?
Currently, the rule is that you can have, you can extend, if your bylaws aren't updated yet, you can extend until December 31st. That is what we have been authorized to do. And I don't know if it's going to, obviously it will probably be looked at, but right now the authorization for Zoom or hybrid meetings, if you haven't updated your bylaws, is through December 31st of this year.
And the only reason I bring it up is because before COVID, everyone had a comment, oh, if these meetings were available on video, a lot of more people would attend. And then COVID hit, and then of course everyone's attending or not, depending on where you are. And I'm in the high school level, so it's really hard to get people when most of our school base, and Diane, you know, this is bussed in from a different community.
Right. My children actually graduated from San Gabriel High School, so I'm very familiar. But what you can do is take a look at your bylaws and make sure that they're updated, you know, send them in, you know, sooner rather than later so that you can have that ability throughout the year, right? And you don't have to worry about that December 31st deadline.
And I'll just say this, and then we're going to have to close about that. You just have to make sure that when you are especially doing a hybrid meeting, you have to make sure that the technology that's up allows the people from the Zoom part of it who are from home can actually see the meeting. They can hear properly. You have to make sure that technology is really good and in place. You have to make sure that, you know, they are full participants. Right? Okay. So, and then, so when it comes to voting, you got to make sure you got somebody on tech who can take the votes of the people who are there, et cetera, et cetera. That's all. You just have to make sure it's totally blended together and fair. So, okay. We have to, thank you guys so much for attending. I have a feeling we're going to see you all again in about 10 minutes. And we look forward to that, and see you in a few. Thank you.
Hi, Diane. Sorry, you did ask about my question, but my chat is disabled, so I can't ask the question.